it's time for review of the papers, and with us is Mr. Kayode Komolafe KK, who of course is the ombudsman for the This Day and Arise News Group. He's also the Group Executive Director, This Day Newspapers Limited. Good to have you, KK. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning,
Adefemi.
Mr. Komolafe.
Good morning, Ajay.
Good morning.
How are you guys today?
Great,
Good.
great.
You're ready for the Sunday tonic, as always.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Steve,
So-
you're so fantastic. You're so on point this Sunday morning.
Sunday tonic.
Sunday tonic. I am ready for the tonic.
After that intense transportation interview,
Yes.
let us cool things down a bit. I'm going to the newspaper review.
Absolutely.
We'll of course start with This Day newspaper, the newspaper of record, where we have the lead story that says, after 10 years study, Inec says Nigeria ready for electronic voting. With the riders insist national ICT infrastructure adequate for e-transmission of results. 6, clear legal mandate to implement scheme. 6, 93% of polling units have internet, GSM capacity to cover outstanding 7%. Interesting major affirmation from INEC, given what we have been through back and forth in the last 2 to 3 months over how the 2023 elections will be, and of course all the other elections starting from Anambra to Ekiti and to Osun next year. On top of the lead story just below the masthead, SAN's Taku Malami insist VAT not on exclusive list. We're still having a tango over who should collect VAT in the states. Is it the states, as Lagos and Rivers State are saying, or is it the federal government, as the Minister for Finance is insisting? On the strip above the masthead, UK approves COVID-19 vaccines administered in Nigeria. That would be a kind of relief to a lot of Nigerians who are saying, "Oh, will AstraZeneca, take us to the UK and other EU parts?" So that's an interesting clarification from the same people who donated most of these vaccines, to us. And still on a COVID-related thing, on the window, we have Emefiele. CBN's COVID-19 interventions account for 3.5% of GDP. UBA publishes names, account details of forex defaulters. And last but not the least of the stories on the cover, resident doctors vote to continue indefinite strike. 2 months after, that's very sad, that's disheartening, but it looks like that's the situation for now. I shouldn't end this without mentioning, taking a look at the cover photograph, which celebrates an important media personality at 80, Mr. Sumi Smartcole, a renowned photojournalist, musician, everything. I mean, he has done practically everything. Uncle Sumi Smartcole there, being surrounded by, mostly doctors. You have Dr. Ladipo, you have Dr. Wali Babalaki, or Kurimeta as they call him, with his wife Bolao, and Dr. Eboshunaya celebrating Asumi Smartcole at 80. Those are the key stories in today's This Day. Should we take that with the star? Is the star?
Sure. Let's throw that in there.
Favorite
We do many people's favorites. We do have Thames as one of the people there representing Nigeria proudly. Thames, of course, has one of the biggest songs to come out. She's featured on one of the biggest songs to come out of Nigeria of all time.
Absolutely.
Definitely this year. So big congratulations to
somebody
Thames.
who was rejected just in 2018 when
Really?
she sent her.
No, Steve knows. Steve knows his music.
Everybody loves
the
them.
story. Tell me what happened.
She sent in a song.
Yes.
For
a demo.
A demo.
Yes.
And then she said, no, we can't take this. This is not. 3 years.
That's why you can't take
she's
no
now
for
on
an
a global
answer.
stage.
She is. Just
she's
last
everywhere.
week she was with Rihanna. It's
Drake,
yes.
with everybody.
Our big congratulations to
Thames.
Thames.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right,
Mr.
KK. So,
Komolafe?
Yeah. It will be in order to start on a photo note, and that is celebrating an icon indeed, Sumi Smartcole,
Yes.
at 80, a veteran photojournalist, and I think was also an editor, was the editor of Lagos Live. a publication from the Guardian staple. Assuming in his career, his life story is a very remarkable one. A self-made man, and brought creativity, color, and a lot of advancement into photojournalism. And quite a number of photojournalists have also passed through his mentorship, So it will be in order to say happy birthday to the one and only Sumi Smartco at 80. The lead story of this day is a very important one, not only for the build-up towards 2023, but for the political future of Nigeria, in terms of the credibility, and the advancement that is needed in the electoral process. With Inec coming out and saying that it is ready for electronic voting, I think, in good faith, all sides to the argument as to the feasibility of electronic voting, should take it as a settled issue. Because by law, Inec is the body that is saddled with the responsibility of to deliver, credible, and fair election. So if Inec says that technically it is prepared for electronic voting, I think anything outside that will just be mere politics, and will be quite unhelpful. So it will be, I hope that, particularly in the National Assembly, those who are still doubtful, those who are still opposed to or skeptical, about the efficacy of electronic voting, should, take a cue from that. And I think the long-drawn debate, should be settled by this declaration by Inec, saying that you have coverage in at least 93%, of the country. And in any case, the point has always been there that in a country where you have, millions of, subscribers to mobile, telephone, that you cannot say that Nigeria is not technologically prepared, for electronic voting. So I think that should settle it. The other point, the other story, which is also important also on the political note, is the controversy over VAT. I think it is unfortunate that the Attorney General of the Federation, Malam Abubakar, had to go to New York and be discussing a court matter. I think it is axiomatic, among lawyers that when you have a case in court,
Okay. Sorry, then we are just going to take a very quick pause while we go on this break. And when we come back, the newspaper review will continue.
You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise. And of course, we're still with Mr. Kayode Komolafe, KK, doing justice to the newspapers for today. We were on this day?
Yes, we're actually on a matter of justice. So that the Justice Minister and the Attorney General of the Federation, Malam Abubakar Malami, went to New York and was, commenting, making magisterial statements on a matter in court. I think it's very unfortunate, Malami is the Attorney General of the Federation, but he is not the lawgiver. He's the chief law officer, of the federal government, but it is not the law. It's not the court. It's not the law. The VAT matter, a court in Rivers State, ruled that states have the authority to collect VAT. The Federal Inland Revenue Service has done the proper thing, because it objects to it, to go to court to appeal against the case. The case is still in court. So I think the decent thing could have been for the Attorney General to tell his New York audience that the matter is in court and that ultimately it will be resolved. But for the Attorney General to go to the extent of saying that VAT is in the exclusive list, one does not need to be a lawyer. If you read the Constitution, layman, that if you go through the exclusive list, there is no item on that list that is called VAT. And that is why, in very good story, this day on Sunday has done. Some of his learned friends, fellow senior advocates, have also come out to ask Malami to tell the whole world where in the Constitution, do you have a VAT being listed among the exclusive list over which only the federal government could legislate. No, like I said, I mean, the unfortunate thing there to remark is that the Attorney General ought not to be commenting on a matter in court and be expressing, being the chief law officer of the Federation, because it is his duty to promote, the rule of law and not the rule of Malami, which is what he seems to be doing, in the circumstance. The COVID story, I think it's a relief that Nigerians that have got the AstraZeneca jab, will be allowed into the UK, because there was this fear, like you said at the beginning of the program, that there have been this skepticism as to whether the United Kingdom will recognize the validity of the vaccination in Nigeria. So I think it's quite a good one. But then, on the downside of it, like the story on the front page of Daily Trust puts it, we just have only 2% of Nigeria, being vaccinated. I think that is too low, because in the same world, in countries where you have 70, 80% in the vaccination, and people are now talking of even a booster vaccine, So to still have 20% of our population, being vaccinated, I don't think it's a good story. I mean, it's not, good enough. Even in Lagos State, which for us, we say has been in the lead in terms of mobilizing, public awareness to the public health emergency. The governor is only expressing a very limited ambition that perhaps in the next 1 or 2 years, about 30% of Lagosians will be vaccinated.
Which is the reality, given
what the system. So it's really a challenge. We have a public health challenge here that Nigeria has to double up its efforts, for having vaccination, as you have it, yeah.
Adefemi, I think we had the Daily Trust up.
Yes, we do. Since KK so graciously mentioned the front of the paper. The headline story there, though, is talking about estimated billing, which is causing a lot of people a lot of annoyance, especially here in Lagos. But new customers are paying millions as discos flout metering policy. Now, a survey says that no building gets a meter during connection, and the discos say we're actually not hoarding meters. But if you look at the infographic on the front page, it breaks down new electricity users surveyed across 5 states. And it does show that the number of buildings with meters during connections is truly 0. And that the number of buildings with meters after connection is 35. Now, I don't know what so that's 35 out of 88 residents who were surveyed, right? And then if we look at the number of buildings without meters even after connection, that is 55 of that 88. So there is definitely a disparity there between people actually getting these meters but still being liable to pay for a lot of them. So what happens is you have issues with estimating billing being what many consumers are saying is far higher than what it should be. And they don't have a leg to stand on because they don't have the meters to actually give them the actual usage amount. So I can imagine that is a huge issue.
That people are ready to pay and are actually paying for meters, but then they're not supplied.
Do you know according to this infographic by the Daily Trust, the estimated bill per month for these 55 unmetered buildings is 500,000 naira per single month, and for the year it's 6 million naira. I mean, God. Goodness gracious, that is shocking.
The only way to eliminate it, of course, is to provide each household
with a meter.
With the meter.
That's it.
Moving on, inside Nigerian schools where students were abducted, you can read more on pages 41 and 42 to the top, as is the case with Daily Trust. They do give you a daily count of school children in captivity just to reinforce the fact that this is still an ongoing problem. 102 days the children at the Federal Government College in Birnin Yauri are still in captivity, and it has been 84 days since the children at Bethel Baptist High School in Kujama have been in captivity. So it's definitely a whole lot of information there, not making for the best readings, but what can we do? Finally, Ipop has banned the Nigerian flag in the southeast, and they've declared a sit-at-home order for the 1st of October, which is, of course, Nigeria's 61st Independence Day. Over to you, KK. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, the very unsatisfactory news
Yes.
from the disco, actually brings into question, what you can call the success of the reform in the power sector, the privatization, The Power Reform Act was signed during the administration of President Obasanjo in 2005. In 2013, during the administration of President Goodluck, that law, was put into effect, and then you had the privatization, of the sector. The discos were created. Now, what is puzzling is that the argument then was that you needed to bring in the private sector with their resources, with their managerial acumen, with their technology to make things work better in the sector, and so that the consumers, both domestic and industrial consumers, will be served better. Now you wonder how anybody will go into the business of power distribution and will not do the most elementary, the most basic thing, which is to provide the meter, for the consumers, for you to know how much the consumer, is to pay. So not to have meters, for the disco, not to be able to supply every consumer, a meter. To me, it's impossible, because if you cannot do that, then you have no business.
Absolutely.
Distributing power. You could just imagine going to a filling station.
Absolutely.
And you get there and you are told that, okay, we'll fill your tank and we'll estimate the amount that you have consumed. It does not just make sense. It's the same thing. It's energy too. Yes, you drive into the filling station. You ask, to fill your tank, and the attendant then says, okay, yes, we'll fill your tank, but we'll give you the estimated bill.
It should be around 20,
yes, it should be around 10,000. That is your tank. It does not just make sense. So to imagine that, with all the celebration of the superior management ability, of the private sector with the resources, that for years now, for more than, almost 10 years, that you have the discourse in place, that you cannot provide every, consumer, a meter, it is just unacceptable. But again, it brings into question, the regulatory efficiency, on the part of government, because one will imagine that the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, should have protected the interest of the consumer, because in Nigeria, it's like the consumer has no right, the supplier is always the king, as seen, by the activities of, So this inefficiency, this lack of capacity on the part of disco, I think the regulatory authorities ought to put a stop into it. Any company that does not have the capacity to supply meters, you just get out of the business. There's no point retaining them, because if you go into different, whether at the industrial level or the domestic level, the consumers are groaning, and I think it is just sheer exploitation, and rip-off that is taking place, and I think that should not be permitted in any decent society, that is not capitalism, capitalism has become more refined than that. Like, you just, take money out of people's pocket for services not rendered, for goods not delivered, It's not permissible, Absolutely. And that is not the way to run an economy, So like I said, the whole business of the reform in the power sector may deserve a review, a whole holistic review, to see those who are supposed to be players there, whether they are actually, playing as it should be. Yes, I also believe that we should draw attention, to that strip in Sunday Trust, about the fate of students in captivity, So I think that is still a very sad news that you are counting days. Almost going to those in Kujama's school. They are now 84 days in captivity. The ones at the Bethel Baptist School, which by the way, the paper also has a very detailed story on that school. They are now today 102 days in captivity. So imagine the agony of the parents,
Yes.
having their children there in the wilderness, amidst criminals, for this, and it's this challenge, to the Nigerian state, the security agency, the police, the army,
heartbreaking.
So I think it is not. It should not be taken as normal, there's no society whereby you read this news every day and you just think it's just another news.
Right.
It's not, it's not just a pleasant one.
Some of those children, some of those they're as young as 5?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the youngest there.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to finish up on the Daily Trust, or should we take another newspaper? Do you have a story?
We can take
here?
another newspaper. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Then let's move over to the Guardian newspaper. The lead story: 2023 presidency. Options available to South if North fails to shift grounds. I guess we have some excerpts from some of the agitation groups that are right now talking about self-determination. This one's from Ohaneze Ndigbo. It says, if common sense fails, referendum towards self-determination is inevitable. And then another group known as I believe it's the Ala Igbo Development Foundation, ADF, says it's time South Middle Belt join forces to challenge Northern hegemony. And then Nigeria must be restructured before next election. North's insistence will polarize Nigeria, says Afenifere. Attempts to break rotational presidency validates conspiracy theories regarding Fulanization, says this Yoruba group. Ronu is another self-determination group. Ronu.
Yoruba. Think.
Yoruba.
Ronu.
Think.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yes, that's what we mean. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've heard from them. And I believe the Guardian has pictures of people that they are pushing for the presidency, I guess. Right now we have Amini Tamboa.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects. Atiku Abubakar, I believe, as well as Saraki. And then, over the weekend, there was a video that was circulating online. Posters of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in London. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes.
They were campaigning for him in
Been
London.
on for a while.
All right, that's my story for tomorrow. All right, and then, I don't know what your take is on this lead story, but there are other stories that we should just quickly touch on. Resident doctors vow to continue strike action. They elect new executives. Another story there, 7 soldiers, 4 civilian, JTF feared killed in ISWAP ambush. Really sad there. Then this story on Anthony Joshua, which made me cry last night. I literally cried.
Did you?
I did. I'm sorry, I did. He lost his belt to the Ukrainian.
All of them, because
yes,
it's the
all of them. Yeah.
So now the person who beat him has all 3 heavyweight titles.
Exactly.
It's a very tricky game. I didn't know that. It's like with the more belts you win, you fight to defend those belts.
All of them.
I thought they were always yours. It's just the title that goes.
No, it's over now. Really. So, KK, over to you.
Yeah, I think for me the most important story there is the continuation of the strike by the medical doctors. After 7 weeks. After 7 weeks, and I think if that is not a matter of national emergency, I wonder what a national emergency could be. Because you only need to put yourself in the situation of a patient, that depends on the public hospitals, served by these doctors,
Yes.
Because only a very tiny percentage of Nigerians, can afford the cost, of private medical bills. Yeah. So I think the federal government should, engage the doctors so that we can put an end to this strike. I think it's something of a national scandal that we could, we can have 7 weeks, of a strike, by medical doctor, It just shows the premium, play to that, to that sector. Like I always say that if you want to measure how important the social sector is to any government, namely health and education, you should ask how the human beings, the human resource in that particular sector, how they are treated, So I think it is something that should be taken as unacceptable that the government has failed to put an end to this strike, and the only way to put an end to it is not by bullying the doctors or by being recognized, is to engage them and meet their demands, And part of it that you should also know is that part of their demands is the payment of debt in service to some to the next of kin, of their fallen heroes. Some of their colleagues, died last year in the course of COVID. There's one that they gave a register of over 20 doctors that died in the course of COVID. So they imagine that doctors have to go on strike for 7 weeks to get the debt in service, benefits of those people to be paid. I think it's a national scandal. As these same people, it's not something that we should permit.
It's a national scandal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then this same doctor was saying that you are talking of hazard allowance to a medical doctor, 5,000 naira per month. That's taking so long, to be able to reach agreement to increase that amount. I also think it's a national scandal. But because the elite, don't depend on the public hospitals, if you cannot afford to go abroad, like our president and other leaders, you can afford to go to the very expensive private hospital. In some of them, dollars are paid, for services, Even in this COVID, there are COVID patients that their bills, run into 20 million, 30 million, in some private hospitals, But it's not everybody who can afford this. Majority of the people depend on the public hospitals, and that is where these doctors who are on strike, are working, So perhaps the reason why the government and the elite not take it seriously is because they don't depend, on the health services, of this hospital. So I think the government should, be more responsible, to engage the doctors, because it is not enough to dismiss this as a stubborn attitude, on the part of doctors to continue with the strike. But the thing is to look at the issues and see how they could be resolved, as soon as possible. Yeah.
Okay, KK, thank you. We'll move on now to Sunday Vanguard, where we have the lead story. It's a special report on Zamfara. Zamfara report on banditry. 2 ex-governors indicted, another for trial, 15 emirs to be removed, with the rider 10 military officers for court-martial. An important story running from page 21 up till 23 of today's Sunday Vanguard. And below that lead story, we have 2023. Storm rages as 12 PDP governors back Northern President. Wike, of course, saying that Wike gives condition to support zoning. That's a rider to support that story. On PIB passage, Northern senators, reps had upper hand over Southern lawmakers. That's from Senator Tofomowo. I'm not sure I got that, pronunciation right. And INEC insists on e-transmission of results, says it won't cede role to NCC and National Assembly, which we have touched on. And on top of the masthead on the window, before the window, on the street, COVID, no plan to stop Nigerians from entering UK. That's according to the envoy. We've also dealt with that. On the window, extradition, Igbo banks on political solution. Feels abandoned in Benin as wife heads to Germany. Case in Benin court to resume anytime from now. And then a sad note which Femi and I discussed yesterday about the slain policeman who was my senior in secondary school. Lagos Okada riders riot. Murdered police officer had premonition of death. That's according to colleagues. Tension in police command. We hope that justice will be served. We hope that the authorities will go after these inhuman evil people who killed a young man with just barely 8 months left in the service, planning to go into law practice once he retires. Those are the stories we have on Sunday Vanguard. KK, over to you, sir.
Yeah. The story of the policeman killed by the Okada rider is quite heartrending. And just like Steve said, it's a challenge, to the Lagos State judicial system, to really take the matter to its logical conclusion and get the perpetrators, of that particular heinous crime, punished, according to the law, for the crime. It's quite unfortunate, and I think our commiseration should go to the family. Now, the Zamfara story. What is puzzling about that story is that, in a way, you may say that it is no news, because the report we are talking about here was submitted to government, to Zamfara State government, way back in 2019. That is almost two years ago. The reports were, and when you look at the content of the, actually go into the root of why Zamfara State is almost torn into shreds, by insecurity. So you will imagine that if this information was available to a government 2 years ago and nothing was done, and the havoc that has been done in the last 2 years, has been permitted, that's why I say, that's why I say that it is puzzling. So the thing there is to challenge the Zamfara State government, to come up with a white paper on the recommendations of that panel, which is quite thorough, and which quite a number of high-profile persons, have been indicted, including 2 ex-governors, of the state, and about 17 emirs, were also, have also been indicted, in the report. So I think the Zamfara State government, if it is serious, about tackling insecurity in that state, which is already bedeviled, by banditry, kidnapping, and other violent crimes, should take a look, at the report. On Sunday Igboho, I think it's also related. The Sunday Igboho story is also related to that of Ipop, which you find in the front pages of most of the newspapers today.
Absolutely,
yes,
including the Sunday Punch.
Yes, I think what is needed in both cases, both in Nnamdi Kanu's case and Sunday Igboho, is that the government should be thinking more now of a political solution.
Dialogue.
Yes, because these are not matters that you can settle in court.
Right.
Yes, they are not matters that can ultimately settle in court. That the government should be thinking of a political solution and also address the issues that produce, the situation, in which the Southeast, under the reign of Ipop is, and also in the Southwest, where the position of Sunday Igboho, like it or not, is quite popular, in many quarters.
Exactly.
So it is not everybody who is speaking on television or who is being quoted in the newspaper that, has an opinion on it. There are many silent, people who feel very strongly, on these issues, and that is the reason why the government should adopt a political solution rather than just relying on technicality.
They banned the Nigerian flag in the southeast. How does that work?
And also planning another protest for October 1. A day that should be that should be set aside to celebrate our nationhood. Our independence, our unity. In the southeast, that it promises to be another day of protest.
Right.
Trouble.
Well, let's see how everything wraps up. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Komolafe. We'll see you next week.